Do you want to know all about intuition, what it is, how to bring more of it into your life? Do I have a guest for you? Kim Chestney has known about intuition her whole life and developed a method with keys to make it part of your life. We had such a good conversation, so high energy, a lot of laughs, a lot of ahas. I know you're going to love this one. Hi, everybody. I know I'm always excited about every episode, but Kim Chestney, my guest today, it feels like a soul sister, and we've just met. We just found out that we even went to the same college, a little college in Pennsylvania. So, Kim, why don't you just come in right now and welcome everybody as we welcome you.
Thanks so much, Suzanne. It is so great to be here, and it's so great to witness all these little God winks and synchronicities that sort of affirm our connections in life like this.
Yeah, one thing that I tell all of the people who attend my retreats or cruises or classes is just ask Spirit to give you a question that will lead to some connection that you have. And I just happened to notice in reading your biography that you live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I just said to you, I'm a Pennsylvania girl. And we got to talking about that. And little did I know it led to that beautiful connection. But what really connects us is the similarity in our work. But your focus is on intuition. Would you put it that way, that is the main focus, or put it in more broad terms?
Yeah, sort of. That's sort of been my obsession for my whole life is understanding how it works. Like you, I've really shared in an exploration of the sort of multidimensional nature of reality and trying to find validation and evidence from a really grounded perspective and learning how to integrate that into our lives. So I think that sort of balance in life is something we both share when it comes to tapping into our intuition, but also using it and applying it in really practical ways in life.
Excellent. And your background sounds like it was very left brain. You had a tech background. Just tell us about that. And did you know during that career that you were part of something greater?
Yeah. So, and I think that's another thing that we share is that we've both sort of had these really strong business backgrounds where we were very much into the sort of wheel of life where we're succeeding. We have a business. We're involved in these big things, and I'm meeting with all these tech companies. But deep down inside, I always knew that this intuitive calling within that there was sort of something more that was waiting out there. And the shift really happened for me when I started working in the arts and technology and creative technology, which is innovation in the innovation space, startup space, the entrepreneurial space. And I started hearing really super smart people talking about intuition and how it's so important for technology and innovation and creating new things that make the world a better place. And that really started to resonate with me for this sort of larger understanding as intuition is part of our evolutionary urge, as this sort of dimension of our mind that inspires us to create new things to make the world better, whether it's personally or whether it's globally in what we do with business and in global communications and societal change, all of these things. So I feel like intuition has this really beautiful role, not just personally, but also in a real cultural and global sense.
Beautiful. I will say, however, that, and I know my background as military officer, not business. So when you said we both had this business background,
Yes.
I laughed because after I retired from the Navy, I facilitated strategic planning sessions for some companies. And when it came to the profit and loss section, I just had to stick to how to facilitate a group because I always joked that in the military, we weren't concerned about profit. So the business aspects were missing, but I had no idea that intuition and the greater reality was real during my career. So I love that you were able to recognize that early on and bring it into your work.
Yeah, so that was something I was really curious about with your work because being in the military and the really awesome things that you did, I was curious if you had any of those, you never really had sort of any of those sort of pings at that time. There was sort of a life-changing event, right, that kind of shifted you. Is that from my understanding? Is
Yeah,
that right?
right. That was after I retired when my stepdaughter died, but I chalked any insights I had up to paying attention and thinking ahead.
Mm.
Military training. But
Mhm.
tell me how you came to know that intuition is real. I know that in the beginning, you have a book called Illumination Code.
Yes.
And there's a story right in the beginning of there about well, you go ahead and tell it. I know what I'm leading.
Yes. So that's a fun story. So, I always joke, I sort of had all of these little pings and inklings growing up of, I think universe was just kind of like, pay attention, there's something else going on here. And, we live in a materialistic world and, a materialistic family I was brought up in. So it's kind of like, that's just your imagination. That's not real. So we kind of push it down. And then finally, it seems like you have this moment. You're like, okay, I can't deny it anymore. And for me, one of those moments where it's a funny story. Back to college, we have a college theme going on. When I was at Millersville University, we had an exchange program with England, with a town in Hull, England. And so I went over there and I studied for a year. And while I was there, one night, a bunch of friends and I went to the Hull Fair, and the gypsies were out, and it was all this pageantry and all this fun stuff. We're like, let's go get our palms read. Well, this woman who was amazing and just a really cool all around woman, not like some gypsy person like they make it out in the movies. Just a great woman, and she sat down and she looked at my hands and she said all this stuff about me, which is like stuff that was true, but someone could have guessed. And then she said, in 1994, you're going to be in a foreign courtroom, and I see this, and it's going to be hard for you, but you just need to stick with it. You're going to be doing something good. And, my friends and I are like, what? I was like, well, I'm like, a foreign courtroom could make sense because I'll be back in the US then. I wrote all this down. We're like, that was really specific. Most psychics don't get that specific with dates.
Yeah.
Sure enough, in 1994, I ended up getting called for jury duty. I was sequestered for 2 weeks on a really big trial, and it was all this stuff. I know, right? And I was just like, okay, so now I have to accept it's possible to see the future. There's no doubt in my mind people can do it, and if she can do it, can't we all do it? Like she didn't seem like an alien or something special, right? We can all do it. So that sort of led me to this book and all this stuff, trying to find the science behind it of how it actually works.
And there is science behind it. So you and I both like to bring the science in. I'd love to hear you talk about the science. I had a scientist once say, all these spiritual people that start throwing words like quantum around, they should stop. Well, yes. At a point, yes, but there is a level where we can all understand the basics. I'm looking forward to hearing your understanding of quantum physics and how it makes all of this possible.
Yeah, and that's something that I was really cognizant of too when starting to use the word quantum, because it's not something that we just want to just as a catch-all word, for what we're doing. And it really actually, coming back full circle to college, I actually started a minor in physics in college because I was so interested in it in college, but I was a calculus class short, so I gave up in math. But hey, it was the college try, and I really started my love of physics back then. And as I started kind of going down this rabbit hole with intuition over the past 10 years, my first book came out in 2004, actually, and that was while I was in the thick of like my everyday human life, and that was difficult because people were like, my first book's a psychic workshop, and it was like, oh, or can you read my mind? And people really had at that point, it was different 20 years ago than it is now, and it was a little harder for people to wrap their minds around it. But I have seen a shift over these last 20 years. And then my last book, Radical Intuition, was 2020, and that's when we really started to see, I thought personally started seeing this shift into intuition, and not just in a spiritual sense, but during this time frame we see like so many more areas of life embracing intuition and recognizing that it is a real thing. And it all really culminated for me with reading Ervin Laszlo's work and Science in the Akashic Field, of really understanding the idea of that there is this quantum field that connects all things, and that all the information in the universe is embedded into it, and we all have access to it through our inner wisdom, which is really this reimagining of what we already knew through the ancient texts and the Eastern Bhagavad Gita and the field and all the stuff that was taught to us, but we never had the evidence for. So the premise that I really ran with, and I think it's true, and this was part of why I really wanted to pick Dr. Laszlo's brain about this, is that intuition is a fact in fact, a type of quantum thinking. It's our way of interacting with that deep dimension on a microcosmic level and accessing information that's not held in this space around us in three-dimensional space and time. So that's sort of my point of departure, which I think also ties into the work that you do and how we can look at things in a multi-dimensional sort of framework for understanding everything that's going on invisibly around us.
Excellent. So you are of the understanding, as am I, that anybody can tap into this quantum field because we're basically swimming in it right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Does your book go into how to do that?
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do is make sure that my books aren't just reading books, they're practice books, doing books. So there's over 50 exercises in this book to sort of start getting evidence because, as you know, evidence is really important with intuition. And if we don't have evidence, we don't really know for sure it's not our imagination. We want to get those validations and those sort of God winks and synchronicities and things that allow us to start building trust in our intuition. So my whole goal in all of my books have been to create practical exercises, ways to tap in to these things, to get those personal aha moments, those impossible moments. Like, how did I know that? There's no way I could have known it, right? And when that happens to you, or when you're with your clients, you say something that there's no way you could have said that, right? That is that evidence that there's something deeper, something more. And that evidence that there's more to life than just this life. There's a whole nother life around us and after. And it's such a beautiful thing to me to be able to bring through those kinds of validations and let people see that, there's so much more to this reality. It's exciting.
It is. Can you give us an awesome experience beyond the gypsy reading that validates intuition as a tool?
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, so much of it. I mean, I just think there's been practical ways through my job, really learning to follow your heart and follow your passion. But honestly, I think the real wake up call for me in improving my intuition was when my sister passed. And I think I share a similar story for you with you that when my sister passed very young and tragically, she stayed. She stayed with me, and she is still with me, and really she's done so much for me in terms of bringing through evidence for me and showing me things that really has allowed me to build confidence in this work and knowing that this is real. I'm not making this up. This isn't just woo-woo stuff, right? This stuff is real and we need to figure it out. So for me, this proof of life beyond life is so valuable. And to have people like you and other people in this field that are out there saying, yes, we need to embrace this. Why are we pretending like this is, why are we living in denial of this whole reality that's waiting for us? And now science is backing it and saying, this isn't just plausible, this is probable. These impossible things are possible after all. So I think it's such an important really place for us to start focusing on the future, to see what does death really look like. It's not death, it's another life, it's a future, it's another dimension. Let's start exploring it, right? Let's see what's out there.
Absolutely. And when we do it, life is not only fun, but the universe supports us, and we see how very supported we are. So tell us how your book is laid out. You talk about this code. How's it organized and why is it a code?
Yeah, I think I really sort of my goal is to kind of reframe intuition in a way that we can understand it in the modern era. So like if you look back to like the Akashic record and you think of how it was designed to help people use it when it was sort of popularized in the 1800s, 1900s, before we really understood things like computers and quantum physics. It was a library, the Akashic record, the Akashic library, and it was in books because books were what held information. But now, when we have an understanding of the internet and hard drives and storage and all of that stuff, fiber optics, it really lends itself more to this sort of quantum understanding of reality, and that we're living in this interconnected web of information and this field of energy, and that we're able to download from it locally and participate in it non-locally in different ways. So I came up with this idea of the Illumination Code, kind of evolved over the course of the book when we started to talk about, how intuition works in terms of really communicating with information as the fundamental building block of the universe, right? So we break down reality now, and we know that there's energy and information, but the core, we have these codes of information that end up building our reality and creating our reality. Well, our intuition is the mental process that's built to read those codes.
Oh,
So
I
with
love
our
that
thinking
definition.
mind, right?
Yeah.
Our thinking mind, we can read the codes of three-dimensional reality. We can touch things and sense things and process things linearly. But with our quantum mind, or sort of our intuitive mind, we can read these codes from the quantum dimension that come up that really store all the information of everywhere, every when, all times, which is how we can tap into past lives. This is how we can see the future, because everything's happened all at once. And all of these things suddenly become possible, and interdimensional communication, right, with life beyond life. All of these things happen through this field and through this illuminating code that guides us from within.
So illuminating, in the way you used it just then, feels to me that you're saying illuminating in that it informs us.
Yes.
It gives us wisdom. It illuminates what's happening all around us.
Yeah, and it's like, it's kind of a double entendre, because it's illuminating as in like information with the dash, information. It comes from within. It illuminates us. It guides us. But it's also based on light, because we understand we live in a holographic universe, and all this information is embedded in light. So I kind of like that double entendre, that it's lighting us up and giving us wisdom, is what this sort of code of the universe is there for. And my book just talks about using your intuition to learn to read the different codes.
Really cool. So has the information come from any sort of inner guidance, or strictly from research, or combination of both?
That's such a great question. So yeah, I think a lot of it is inner guidance and inspiration, and I think that it's sort of that co-creating, that I was sort of led to this path by my personal experience. A lot of it, I'll thank my sister for it, because she wasn't letting me not do it. It was like, you're gonna do this, or I'm gonna haunt you until you do it. So
Good job.
yeah, so good job, sister. She has really been there pushing me to do this. Like, I'm still here. I'm gonna let you know I'm still here, and you need to keep pressing on. Even though I would, sometimes I wasn't sure, and it was difficult. But I think a lot of it was just an inner passion and an inner drive to understand my reality, and I wasn't really gonna feel at peace until I could make sense of the world that I was living in, because I felt like I was living in a different world from everybody else. Like, things would happen around me, like physical stuff, like a very natural physical phenomenon person. Like, this drum over here plays itself every morning when I sit down. Like,
I've had that happen.
My
Just
whole life.
a ding. I don't know if
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
That's what it does. It
Oh
just like that every single day.
Oh,
For like 2 years
that
now.
one.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of can't deny it. And I've had that kind of stuff since I was a kid. Was little different kind of stuff that would happen. I just think my makeup might make that sort of possible. So for me, I needed to understand what was happening. I was like, I have to understand my reality. So I had sort of a personal motivation to figure things out.
What's your relationship with your sister like now, day to day?
It's a lot better than it used to be. When she first passed, I think she was really, like, wow, what's going on? And, like, she was in a state of shock, because I don't think she expected this to happen any more than we do. So it was hard in the beginning, because we would hear voices. She would be waking me up at night all the time, like, just waking me up. Nothing like horror movie stuff, but like annoying. Like, I need to sleep. I'm going insane if you don't let me sleep. So we made like a treaty. I'm like, listen, we can have a relationship, and I'm gonna be here for you, but just don't wake me up. That's my rules. Don't wake me up.
You can set boundaries with spirits. Absolutely.
Exactly, right? So I know you know all about this kind of stuff, and that's why one of the reasons why I was really excited to have this conversation, because knowing that you have someone, and I'm personal, I live personally this journey where I feel almost closer to her now than I did when she was alive. And the drum, just little things. She'll still leave me little things. I'll find little notes. Like, one time I went to open my suitcase, and I found a little note in my suitcase that I had given her like 20 years ago. Just showed up in my suitcase. She'll put her rings in the dishwasher. She'll she would leave like put pictures around and my friend, it wasn't just me, she did it to like friends of the family, and my mother would find these things too. So she is really intent on letting us know that like she's still around.
I've been doing this since 2007, 8, 9, when it all came to the forefront after Susan's death in 2006. And I do readings all the time, and I hear these stories all the time, but I can't stop my jaw from dropping when I hear these stories. We love it. So what is your understanding about why these things don't happen to everybody?
That's a great question. I think, well, for me, I think some of it's astrology. Like, I was born on Halloween and I have 6 planets in Scorpio. So I think it might literally just be like my physical energy. Like, I might just be physically wired for this more. That's one theory. Another theory is that, maybe sort of past life work and connection leaves you more open to things, or allows you to be more open, or if you're just naturally sort of born with a gift, just like, we're born with talents like art or music or whatever. People are born open to different things. But I do think that all of it can be cultivated. I don't know about like the physical stuff. I think that's something that, for me, I've always just felt like sort of the physical manifestation stuff is really just somehow part of my biofield or energy that just makes something easier, because it was happening even before my sister passed. So evidence is it wasn't just her. Yeah. Something about me. I don't know.
That could be because there are some people who can't even wear a watch. Their energy is so different that it
That's
breaks.
Me.
There we go. Oh, see,
I can't wear watches.
There's a lot to what you say then. And your sister has a good resonance with you. But here's a good question. I know you'll have an answer to this because I know you discuss it in your book about this Akashic field known historically as the Akasha, but we're talking about the quantum field. Basically, the one field of all energy information. If it's all accessible to us, and you and I teach methods to access the energy information, why did you state that your answer to my question about why you seem to attract more of these physical phenomena is a theory? Why don't we just access every answer just like that?
Yes, that's such a good question. And I think, and that's sort of the sort of kickback question you get when you say, oh, there's a field of all this energy information. Well, then why don't I know everything? Right? And I think there's different layers of that answer. And part of that has to do with entanglement. Like, I think that we know what we're entangled with first. Like, our brains aren't built to house that much information. Like, with these little brain processors that we have and against the whole world, I don't think there's any way that we can actually fully conceive of what that whole reality is. I don't think biologically that it would be possible to know all that, right, to start with. But then I think beyond that, I think we are drawn to the things that we're entangled with. It's easier for us to reach out to things that we're emotionally connected with, things we have a mental intention towards, things that we're actually near in time and space. Those things can come first and easy. But I do think that we can tap in, go out further into that with practice and development. And I was just talking to someone, and we were talking about, it feels like the whole world, we're all kind of at kindergarten level with our intuition. Like, we know it's there and we're playing around with it, and we can get some little hits there. We can see some things happen. But then, we're really just scratching the tip of the iceberg of what's possible.
Oh, yeah.
And the more we develop it, the more you can go into that field, and the more you witness that magic, and the more you get that evidence that comes through. And so I think it's time and practice will help us to go deeper into that place.
Okay, no doubt about it. These brains, they're filters. They're blocking out our awareness. Yes. Once the body's no longer in the way, all bets are off, right? But yet, my friends across the veil tell me that even immediately when we cross, we don't have access to all of it. So there are varying degrees of access to energy information. So
I love that. So like, when we first we're in that transition period, right? Is it that we are just kind of transitioning into being that limitless self? Have you found that there's kind of sort of a evolutionary process or progression after we pass?
Yes, indeed. And so spirit guides would have more access to energy information than those who are still in the spirit realm, the astral realm after this lifetime. And then the angels, more access, archangels, even more access. So it is evolution. But right now we're concerned with evolution of the human species, and tapping into our intuition is a great way to help us evolve. What does that evolution mean to you? What are we evolving towards?
Yeah, I think about this a lot, especially with AI and all of these conversations that are out there about what does the future of humanity look like. And when I put my intuition on it, what really comes to me from this sort of journey that I've had in my life so far is really the next step is bringing intuition into a wider understanding in the world, like I said before, into all of the different parts of our lives to really guide that evolutionary urge. So we all have this evolutionary urge and this sort of innate desire to grow and expand with the universe. And our intuition helps us to direct that to the best and highest path, right? So with our intuition, we can do it the easy way, or we can not use our intuition and do it the hard way. And we can learn through suffering and pain and all of that, or we can use our intuition and have that aligned path. So I think the more that we start to have more people using their intuition, aligning with their path, that leads us to more unity, more peace, more collaboration. All of these things are so important, right? Not working against each other, working together, sharing in the journey. And that's ultimately where intuition starts to become big picture, I think, and becomes this thing where we feel connected to each other more, and instead of all the separation.
Yeah. Wow. I'm still stuck on we went to that same little college.
I know, me too.
I don't.
And then we've talked about it twice now. So I usually don't talk about college stuff. So
And I just did a reading for one of my college, my best friend from freshman year reached out to me and said, I see what work you're doing now. So the connection there in 1 week, there's something there.
it's good stuff. It's Lionsgate. So
Yeah, we're recording this on 8/8, known as Lionsgate, when stars are aligned in a way that we can manifest. So my work, The Awaken Way, the subtitle of this book is Living a Divinely Guided Life, making a shift to a divinely guided life. But the longer title, the longer instruction is living a consciously connected life. How conscious are you of your higher self, your connection with all that is throughout your day? Do you have to remind yourself often, or has it become such a way of life for you that it's just natural?
yeah, that's a great question. And I think that it's definitely something that evolves slowly. Like, I think you don't really realize how much you start relying on your higher self regularly, until it becomes natural, becomes more natural. And I call it the part of you that knows everything. And once we start to rely on the part of us that knows everything 24/7, right, then we sort of just naturally start to live in this flow and ease. And I can tell when I'm not
Yeah.
relying on that, right? Because then it's like anxiety. Feel nervous about something, or I might feel depressed, or I might feel like, have some of those negative thoughts coming in because I'm not in that space. So I think it's a great gauge, right? When you're feeling aligned and feeling connected, that there's sort of an inner flow that comes with that is really supportive. But yeah, I like to say I live in that as much as I can, but like everyone else, there's those moments where you just have to just do that self-talk and say, you know what, this is I'm going to trust the universe, because when all else fails, fall back on trusting life in the universe and letting life work it out for us.
That's it. Now, you made that statement that's counter to what we talked about. There's a part of you that knows everything. And there is. We just may not have access to everything at this point in our evolution. So your book is designed around 7 keys to the personal experience of a universal truth. That's how you say it, I believe. So
yeah, or the title of the book is, you can say simply 7 keys to unlock your quantum intelligence. Or you can rephrase that if that's too much quantum.
No, we want to know all about it. So tell us what the 7 keys are, just a review of them as deep as you want to go.
Yeah, okay, great. So I wrote the book as a series of keys because I want this to be sort of a participatory journey. So these are all, each key has a practice with it that can sort of open up like a deeper dimension. Like, I imagine this as sort of starting out, setting our intention to go on this journey, and then kind of progressively going into a deeper dimension. And then there's a key to unlock that deeper dimension and a practice to help you personally experience it, right?
Nice.
So That's
Yeah.
sort of the idea. And it starts, I call them illumination keys because they're sort of these keys that like light us up and illuminate us and guide us. And the first one, is designed to sort of unlock the inner dimension. It's just you're standing at that gateway. And that's that recognition that there is a part of you that knows everything. It might not be your conscious part, it might not be the everyday part you live in, but there is a part up there, a higher self, a deeper self that is connected to that everythingness of the universe. And that the more we open and expand with our intuition, the more we can start to live by that. So
Excellent.
that's kind of how the first key opens the book. And then we move in to the second key, which sort of opens up our intuition and reconnects that sort of inner information highway so that we can pull more information out of that dimension of our life where we know all things, AKA the inner field, the quantum field, the field of intrinsic awareness, I call it. It's that the way that we're informed from the inside. So opening up a connection with that spot. And then once we go into the key number 3, that's where we expand into it and understand that the reality that we live in is so much more than the reality we think, right? That there's this whole nother reality. It's looking at meta reality and learning to use our meta senses, seeing with our psychic senses and how they work and how they're informed by the microcosmic dimension in our connection with the quantum field. And so there's some fun exercises there.
That word meta is an excellent term to use to take this away from woo-woo. Meta meaning beyond. So meta reality beyond this reality doesn't mean that this isn't real. And then meta senses, I've never heard it combined with that word, but that's a great way to put what I would call our soul senses beyond the physical. Yeah.
Yes, thanks. Because that's really what I was thinking. I thought it kind of made sense when we talk about metaphysical and physical. Well, we have our physical senses, right? So our psychic senses, the 5 clairs, they're really just our meta senses, right? They react with the world the same way, but you're interacting with the psychic world, the metaphysical world, as opposed to the actual physical world. So yeah, so I thought that was a good way to kind of reframe this idea in a way that's really pretty no nonsense. Yeah, it works the same way. It just comes from within instead of outside.
Yay.
Yeah. So then I talk more in chapter 4, the 4th key about what I call the mind matrix, which is sort of the Akashic record and understanding how all of this information actually connects to us, how we can learn to get guidance from it, how we can actually go beyond time a little bit, tap into the future and the past, because we know that everything everywhere is happening in the ever-present now. So knowing that, we can start to play around with going, beyond these borders a little bit and tapping into the future.
So help me remember to come back to the next one, which would be 5, but let's pause here on chapter 4 and talk about this question that people ask me all the time. And my guides get to a certain point and they say, and now we're blowing your circuits, because it's just so hard for us to wrap our minds around a world where everything's happening at once. What is your understanding of the future's already happened if we have free will?
Yes, that's the big question, right? Right. And that's where everyone stops. It's like, okay, I get that, except am I forced into living this life? But no. And that's where quantum physics really saves the day. And I think that once people really start to get a grasp on what quantum physics is telling us, and it's like the saying goes, if quantum physics hasn't completely blown your mind, you haven't understood it yet. That's because right. It totally creates a whole new view of reality. And we need to start getting into this mindset where we have a different conception of time, because we know even through relativity with Einstein that time is relative and we're in a relative world. So it feels very, we can see ahead and we can see the past because we're in a local place and time. So when we reconcile locality and non-locality, we kind of come up with this idea that how do we move through this in a way that we still have free will and we still make our own choices and we don't live in a world where everything's predetermined. So quantum physics has shown us that, we live in a world of multiple realities, alternate realities. Every decision that we're making leads to new potentiality, right? So we're talking about manifestation and pulling down the particle from the wave and creating the reality with our local consciousness that we are on. So theoretically, right, there's countless different versions of our life with the different choices that we could have made. So sure, there might be different outcomes to situations, but when I think sometimes when people see the future, they tap into the most entangled future, right?
Yeah, the
Like
most probable one.
right, the ones that's most probable we're most aligned to. And I think oftentimes if someone might sense something in the future and it's wrong, it's quite possible that they were looking at a reality that never ended up happening because different choices were made, like, which can be good if it's like revelation and destruction and things, like maybe we can avoid those and go on the high path and make a beautiful new world and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, potentiality, right? And is that the way you understand it too?
It is, and you put it beautifully in a way that I haven't heard others explain it. So yes, multiple realities happening at once, but where you put your focus is what you experience. So here we are, for some reason, through choices that you and I and everybody who's drawn to this podcast right now have manifested this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's a beautiful thing.
Well, we can make it a beautiful thing with
or we cannot.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the fifth key.
Number 5. All right, so the fifth one is that's when I really dive into this idea of quantum intelligence. So this is really focusing on the fact that intuition is a universal language. So thinking about this, that your intuition, my intuition, it's a language we all speak. Okay, so we don't need to know French or Spanish or English or whatever. We can all communicate.
Stop. Because what do you think I studied at Millersville University?
French? Spanish?
Yeah. That's funny.
I'm loving this so much. I'm just talking to everyone up there, out here. Like I'm loving this so much. This is just great. So yeah. And I study physics. So we're just reliving our college youth here today. So intuition is our universal language. That's key number 5, recognizing that it is the one thing we take with us when we leave this planet. We still have our intuition. We can communicate interdimensionally with our intuition, not just in this world. So why aren't we focusing more on this? Why isn't the world embracing this? Because this is huge to me. There's so much potential for us. And the work that you're doing, bringing through valuable evidence of this, you can't deny this anymore. Let's teach it. Right? Let's get out there and embrace it.
Yeah.
So then the 6th key is recognizing that impossible things are possible. And so we go through a bunch of things like remote viewing and past life experimentation and talking about NDEs and astral travel and how our consciousness is not located in our bodies, it's located in the field. So I thought that was a really profound insight from the work that Ervin Laszlo is doing and all of you and Jude Curvin and the different contemporaries in that group, is recognizing that this field is out there and that the reason why so many of these things are possible is because it's not our brain, it's the hosting hardware of our consciousness. It's part of the field and it's able to move and it's able to be present in places that we aren't locally. So that's a really powerful idea. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's a good time. I'll segue into so the final key of the universe is recognizing that we are. I have to say that again because it's not the final key of the universe.
Good.
Back this all up. Take 4, right? So the final key of the Illumination Code is really recognizing that we are all the one that we're looking for. Like, we've been out there searching and seeking, but all the answers are within us. The true teachers within us. And the more we start to live by that and look at ourselves as really this sort of, the end goal is wholeness and self-actualization and unity, and how we can do our own small part to make this world a better place is really part of the power of transformation that we all have individually for the future.
This is such great information. And none of this is new to me. It won't be new to a lot of people listening. And yet each of us has this unique lens, and the way you've put things together, and many of your practices also sound like the same as mine. I know you talk about signs, and I love to teach people remote viewing. And yet, as we do these practices over and over, as we find new angles to look at it, it peels away the layers that are keeping us from knowing what we are capable of. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting that, I think the work that we're doing, the work that other people in this field are doing, we're all sort of pulling down the same things, but we're finding them on our own. I think that's such a great validation of the truth, right?
Yeah,
Like you and I might have similar practices, but we came up with them on our own. And that just shows we're pulling down from that same source information.
yeah,
So, it's not just about going out there and reading books and learning. We're all learning from the same place inside, and
that's
that's
right.
exciting too.
Yeah. So how do people that are really new to this, that understand intuition, and they understand about those nudges and acting on it, what's the real first step for really opening it up?
Yeah, I think so. The first step is obviously slowing down a little bit, being more mindful, opening up space, because when we receive these insights from our intuition and this information and this guidance from our inner world, we have to get those thinking mind hamster wheel thoughts out of the way. We have to get all our big emotions out of the way and calm the sea. So I think calming the sea is really important. And once we get into that place of peace and quiet, then that insight can drop in, those downloads can come, and we really start opening ourselves up to receive. And so that's the key with intuition, right? It's not like it's not like your thinking mind where you have to go figure everything out and try really hard. With your intuition, you just open up and this stuff just comes. It just arrives, right? It just falls into your mind. And so the hardest part for us is learning to receive, because we're taught to go out there and do and produce and make and all this stuff. But with intuition, we just need to relax and open up. And that's
So
sort of,
this leads me to a question, and I hope you take this with no judgment, no criticism whatsoever. But you have a very high energy. You were talking of 10,000 miles an hour at the beginning, and it slowed down just a little bit. And you stop watches with your energy. If I do readings and I tune into spirits across the veil, I'll often tell their loved one here, like, if I were to feel their energy on a scale of 0 to 10, they feel like a 6 to me. But Kim, you feel like a 10. You're like a, maybe that's just in this moment, but I know that normally you're an 8 or 9. I can tell this. How do you slow things down, and do you take time to do that regularly?
yes. Okay. So I appreciate that, first of all. And I really feel like, honestly, this is what happens when I get connected with in this sort of intuitive, excited state. Because
Oh yeah.
intuition for me often feels like excitement, and feeling the connection that we have. Like I think energetically, I kind of feed on
Oh
that. And
yeah.
so I'm not always like this. My family, I'm very relaxed at home a lot of the time. But when I get really fired up about intuition, I'm not gonna lie, I really do. And especially when I'm sharing it in a community with a fellow intuition lover. So that really just really energizes me. So I do really have to, it's almost like when you get in this state, like I just feel like life is talking through me. Like I don't even feel like I'm thinking when I'm talking, right? And that's the easiest way. If I have to think if I have to plan things out and write a speech, forget about it. I can't do that. I just have to let it flow.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you take time each day to meditate or to have moments of dedicated connection?
Yeah, I one of my like mantras in the book is I always say just do nothing like it's your job. And I
Right.
feel like that's right, something that we need to do a little more because we're so busy all the time. We have so much to do. Let's actually take space and say, okay, from 1 to 2 every day, I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm going to go for a walking meditation. Doesn't mean you have to like sit on a mountaintop and meditate, right? It's about having that alone time and that quiet time. For me, I like walking. That's what I do. I walk, and that's for me a little exercise. It gets my energy moving in my body and then allows me to open up space. And that's when all these ideas pop in, right? So opening up that space is really good for getting those little insights that you might forget throughout the day if you're just going. So yeah, I think making space has been really important for me and really helpful. And they even do that in the tech companies now. You hear them talking about, like, on Fridays, there's no meetings Fridays because everybody needs to just open space, because they realize that we can't be innovative, insightful, creative while we're doing, right? We can't, got to get off the hamster wheel.
Good advice for all of us. Yeah, excellent. So to get near the end of this, and bring in another wow. Can you share with us a story, your own or somebody you've taught, that just knock your socks off way that intuition helped or even saved them?
Oh yeah. Oh, I have a great story, and this is actually one of the most powerful stories I think for intuition. Was I was working with a woman who was a yoga teacher, and she was probably in her 20s at the time, and she was living in DC, and she was up in DuPont Circle, and she had at night been bartending as her evening job, and she was walking home one night, and it was around midnight. It was dark, and DuPont Circle's fairly populated, but she was walking down one of the back streets, and she kind of got an icky feeling. She had that sort of like, the hair stands up on the back of your neck a little.
Got it.
Right? You know that feeling.
Yeah.
And she looked down the street, and she noticed there was a police car parked like right in front of one of the restaurants up there. And she had quite a walk home. So she's like, you know what? I should just go up and ask that guy to drive me home, because there was a cop standing there. And that was what popped into her head. And she said, and she overrode it. And she's like, you know what? That's silly. Why would I do that? He's gonna think I'm out of my mind. I'm like some lunatic woman or something like that. She's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And then she started giving herself more self-talk. She's like, if anything happens, I know kickboxing, and the universe will have my back. The universe, will have my back. I'll be fine. Well, she keeps walking, and a few minutes later, she noticed that there's someone behind her, and eventually, this man attacks her, and she ended up being very brutally attacked, and luckily was saved by a neighbor who had heard her screaming. And she tells this story as a cautionary tale, because she was okay in the end. So it's okay. She had a happy ending. She got through it. But this is her cautionary tale of why it's so important for us to listen to our intuition. Because when, she said, oh, well, I thought the universe had my back, but the universe did have your back, because it told you to go and ask that cop for a ride.
That's right.
Right. So the intuition, and when they say the universe protects us, it can't always put a magical force field up around us. But if there's danger coming, a prompt like that can come in and say, oh, just there's your lifeline, take it. And sometimes if you get something out of the blue, right, that's the calling card of your intuition. It shows up out of the blue, sometimes without any source, right? If you get that thought in your head, maybe you really take some time to consider it and honor it, especially if you're already getting those signals, like you're getting the ick, something's feeling off, right? So she was getting all that stuff from her intuition, and she overrode it. And then, but she says, I'm not glad that this happened, because there was a silver lining, because I learned about what it feels like, because I would have never known if I went and got in that car and had gone home that night. I would have never known there was really any danger. I would probably still be saying, I was so silly. Why did I do that?
That's true.
Right?
Well,
so you get that validation.
Yeah. Excellent story. And how many of us have these kinds of stories where we say, I should have listened to my intuition? So hearing stories like this hopefully will help all of us from making that mistake again.
Right? Yeah. I think that it's such a powerful validation, knowing that even when we don't follow our intuition, at least we get validation that our intuition was there for us if we didn't listen,
Excellent.
Silver linings.
Yeah. How do people find out more about you and your book and your work?
Yeah, you can get any of my books anywhere books are sold, Amazon, your local bookseller, and my website, kimchestney.com. I have a free intuition awakening guide, and lots of fun card decks and stuff to play with, and my school, IntuitionLab, intuition-lab.com, classes and fun workshops if you want to play with me. So.
And I love your playful attitude. So that's a really great way to say it. Kim, you've been a super informative guest with great energy. And I feel like my watch is going to break now. I just picked up a whole bunch of that.
It's contagious.
Thank goodness, because we can all use a lift. All right, everybody. I hope you're feeling a little bit higher today as well. We just love what energy you bring to this program. So go out and spread that with the world. Bye-bye.